This is Chase Krim from Texas Roadshow, and you're listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show, part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, the #1 place for advice on how to make money flipping sports cards. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, there is no off-season.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Kelsey from Nash Cards, and you are watching the Sports Card Strategy Show, where there is no off-season.
What's up, everybody? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com. This is the Sports Card Strategy Show. Don't forget to get a free 30-day trial at NoOffSeason.com today to help you make money flipping sports cards, build your sports card investment portfolio, get unlimited advice from our experts, and take sports card school to navigate the hobby. That's NoOffSeason.com. Get your free 30-day trial today. All the data we use on the Sports Card Strategy Show is from MarketMoversApp.com. Use code NOOFFSEASON at MarketMoversApp.com to get 20% off for life after a free 14-day trial. All right, let's get to the Sports Card Strategy. I'm Paul Hickey. He's Lefty McKee. Welcome in new listeners of the Sports Card Strategy Show. And if you're a loyal listener, you know that was Lefty McKee humming as we went live there a minute ago. Lefty, what's up, man? Tell the people what's up.
Bro, I just love that rock music, man. I know it's kind of our thing now, but the entire time that we've done it, it's just like as soon as it gets going, like no matter what my day looks like or anything like that, it's like, I'm like, man, I'm locked in. You know, it's just like,
yeah,
the music just locks me in. If I ever hear another StreamYard podcast that uses the rock music for their stuff, I'm going to be locked into whatever they're doing. So maybe if you've got a podcast out there you want the Lefty McKee to listen to, just use the rock music from StreamYard.
I love it. I'm the same way, man. It gets me pumped. You know, I'm 43. I'm starting to slow down a little bit, and it kind of pisses me off. But when I hear the rock music, it gets me going. And if you're watching on youtube.com/Paul Hickey, Kendall McKee has playoff baseball in the background of his man cave, his sports card cave, let's call it. Looking good in the sports card cave down there, Lefty.
Dude, it's the sports cave, dude. It's my spot. It's progressing a little bit at a time. I have like nowhere to put these shipping boxes, so they're just in the view. And then you've got the posters over here that haven't made it on the wall yet, but slow progress. The point is, on the screen here, playoff baseball is today. And I'm sure there are some cards that you guys are wanting to talk about in respect to playoff baseball, because there's a couple of teams that have players on it that we love to talk about. And there is going to be a game today where the Kansas City Royals could clinch an actual division matchup in the playoffs. Never thought I'd be saying that the Tigers and the Royals could clinch today, another round ahead of them, beating the Astros and beating the who's the other team? Not the Yankees, the Orioles. So it's quite the day for baseball.
Absolutely. And we love Bobby Witt Jr. here in the sports card market. And I love the Tigers. If only we could clone Tarek Skubal and have more of him, because he's absolutely on fire this season. And my Tigers have far exceeded expectations. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about, talking about our sports card opportunities to buy, graded, and flip. Having a discussion about basketball cards, because it's already been NBA Media Day. Like in the blink of an eye, we've had NBA Media Day. It's the preseason is going to be tipping off soon. And then, as we all know, one of the top selling markers for basketball cards is the first week of the NBA season, before things kind of historically have dipped a little bit before they start to rise back up February through May and June. So we'll talk basketball cards. We'll talk baseball cards, to Lefty's point, because the playoffs could be a great selling marker depending on your situation and the players that you're holding. And then I want to talk about when to cut your losses on disappointing QBs at the start of the NFL season. But Lefty, one thing that's not disappointing, my friend, is CGC cards. Are you ready to start grading your cards? CGC cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today. And Lefty and I are going to have a little discussion here about some of the stuff we've got going on in our own personal sports card investment portfolios. But first, we'll say hello to Chad Dyer. I'd like to say we've upgraded our Chads in the show here. Sean Red 5 Cards in the house. David T. Breaking Brad. What's up, Breaking Brad? Terry Anderson. Signs of the Times Vintage Collectibles. You know who that is, right, Lefty?
Yes, sir.
That's our
best
guy.
Uber driver we've ever had.
Our guy, the best Uber driver we've ever had, Tim Larson, the man, says Dave Ramsey Jr. to the moon. I love it. And we've got Joel in the house. Ziggy, my guy, says, I jam the rock theme when I use StreamYard. It's been too long. So we're not the only one. Ziggy likes the rock theme. Said hello to Terry Anderson. This is Interner. Right here.
Interner.
Hey, Lefty.
And the live chat.
Sports past, present, and future is what Turner's rocking right now. As he says, we are the world's most favorite dynamic duo. Who's your card guy? MW, who can't stop trolling us with the Javi Simons from like 2 years ago. Let's say hello to some Instagram people. Nick Morris Real Estate, Jay Smith 4191, DJ Collecting, Elevate Sports Cards, Lone Wolf Sports Cards, Sports Galaxy 2022, DJ Collecting again, V-Bros Collectibles, All Grit Sports Cards. What's up? I know All Grit. That's Dan T. He's a premium member. I love me some Dan T. He's a Detroit Lions fan. Hester Sports Cards, Cards Max, and Hillbilly Abroad in the house. God, we've got a great nooffseason.com fam, don't we, Lefty?
I love it.
One thing the nooffseason.com fam is doing hardcore right now is Panini Instant and Topps Now plays. And Lefty, you told me a minute ago before you started humming at the beginning of the show that you have a little update for us on some of your Panini Instant stuff. What do you got going on?
Yeah, I've sold. So this week, I think it was 2 weeks ago on the premium pod, I submitted a question, which was a first.
Yes, I
submitted a question of like, okay, we've talked about this Panini Instant stuff a lot, but even for me, I haven't been able to really dial in what our process looks like to an effective level, at least. And like I have the grenades. I'm not really good at pre-sailing. What's the strat here? So I said, okay, Paul, act like I'm 5 years old. Act like I don't know what's going on. Walk through the entire process with me, taking something from the grenade of sports cards we get before we get there. What do you do? Walk me through it. So I pre-sold. There you go. There's some grenades right there.
This is a grenade for those of you watching on YouTube or Instagram.
Here's what it
looks like. I love that Lefty calls it a grenade. Phenomenal term for it.
So I ended up getting the Caitlin Clark rookie record breaking. It's like Clark stacks up stats and racks up records. It's her record breaking. It actually has a rookie shield logo and also a milestone logo on it as well. I ended up pre-selling all of these, and I don't have them yet. I ordered 50 of them, but I've been pre-selling them, and I'm starting to get sales on them, which is really fun. So my last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. My last 14 sales on eBay have all been pre-sale Caitlin Clark cards or some of these Bo Nix cards that have come in. They're starting to go off the shelves as Bo Nix is starting to put some wins together. So it's a play that I'm getting more and more comfortable with. And I think the longer time goes on, the Arch Manning cards, I haven't pre-sold them because I think they're going to be worth so much by the time they get to me. I'm actually not pre-selling those ones. Strategically not pre-selling the Arch Manning ones. But I think this will be a play that we continue to do. It's if we can figure out how to ship it correctly and make people aware that it's a pre-sale and get the whole shipping process fine where eBay doesn't ding us potentially. I still think there is some, like, we are having a little bit of a risk handle on it where eBay could ding us down the road for shipping something like 2 months late or something like that. But I'm at least excited about transactions going out before I have the cards in hand, and they're paying more than I paid for them. So that's a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get into some of this, some of these questions in the live chat. Ziggy asked a good question that we're going to get to in a second, which is super relevant, I think. And hello to Sergeant Slabs, by the way. Good to see Sergeant Slabs in the house. From my perspective, Lefty, I'm having a similar situation to you. I've started to see my sales pick up quite a bit. My hunch was that having inventory of some of these players when it matters was going to pay off. And so with Jaden Daniels, with Malik Neighbors, with Jeremiah Smith on the NIL, like I bought 10 Jeremiah Smith cards at a $2.50 cost per card, and I sold them all out when he had amazing catches. I mean, the one-handed catch in the end zone against my Michigan State Spartans broke my heart, but then I smiled a few minutes later when all of my Jeremiah Smith cards sold out right away because like 10 of them sold out, and I made, you know, I made like $70 profit. And you might roll your eyes at $70 profit, but if you think of it like, look, I ordered these cards for, you know, $25 total for 10 cards. They're raw. I got them actually like 10 days after I ordered them. So on the Panini NIL, not the instant, but the college.paniniamerica.net site, I went over and got them there. I got them about 10 days later, so I had them in hand. I had them listed as a pre-sale, but I actually had them in hand when they sold out. And so I was able to ship them right away, which was really cool. On the Malik Neighbors, like Panini Instant first career touchdown catch where he's like falling over. It's almost like he's about to land on his butt. That photo, I'm almost sold out of all of my pre-sales on that one. Another big one for me has been like Jaden Daniels Tops Now and the Jaden Daniels Panini Instance. And so I think, but I will say I have had, eBay has sent an automated email saying like your shipping time is slowing down, like, because I think one of the errors I made, and actually before I keep going into this, my Bo Nix auctions. Remember how, so for those of you who didn't follow Lefty and I a few weeks ago when we talked in depth about this Bo Nix play, I think it was one of our most fun episodes of all time because we bought these Bo Nix cards on the show. I think it was right at the beginning of September or end of August. So it was maybe about a month ago. And
it was the day I think he was announced as the starter.
It was, you're right. And so we were like, okay, let's get how can we get Bo Nix inventory? And we found the Panini Instance on the show and we bought them. And I think I bought 50 of one of them and then 25 of another one. And the good news is, while he hasn't lit the world on fire, I believe he has the Broncos on a 2-2 record, and he's playing solid enough. What people care about in the hobby is when a rookie quarterback wins games, then it puts them in a position to then they start buying their cards. And then when they have a spike week, their cards go up quite a bit. So my Bo Nix Panini Instance have not netted as much profit as my Jaden Daniels, my Malik Neighbors, even my Jeremiah Smiths, but they have sold well and I have profited. I'm going to report on those numbers later. This is like the fourth episode in a row I've said I still haven't had a chance to actually crunch those numbers and put them out into some cool looking graphs and charts at nooffseason.com and then talk about them on the show, which I will, I promise. But in the meantime, those things are selling pretty well. And then the auction, basically, I had so many of them. I think I told you last week, I kind of regret buying so many of the Bo Nix. Maybe I should have bought 25 instead of 50. But when the auctions, as many of you know who sell on eBay all the time, when the auctions don't sell, it's easy to relist. And so I went back and relisted a bunch of my Bo Nix Panini Instant auctions that didn't sell. Now they all have bids on them. So timing is really, really important. The fact that he's 2-2, you know, things are looking up for Bo Nix. I just think, Lefty, these Panini Instant and Tops Now plays, and we're going to get into Ziggy's question here in a second. Hello to Bill Bain in the live chat as well. Welcome, Bill Bain. But I think it goes back to how can you get inventory of a player when they're relevant? And then when we did research, you and I did research on this show about a month ago of like, we're like, holy crap, you can pre-sell these things. Let's do that. And so Ziggy asks, why doesn't Panini use, well, first of all, I think Ziggy just kind of asked a more general question about which do you prefer? So he says, why doesn't Panini use the Topps model of randomly selling out parallels? Panini is buy your parallels, which isn't as much fun in his opinion, because he likes the risk. He likes the kind of lottery ticket. Which do you prefer? And hello to Shane Graham. So, and Terry Anderson asks, which ones are you going to grade? So we'll talk about all this. This is great, by the way, everybody. Thanks so much for the awesome participation here on a Wednesday afternoon. I'll say this. I think it's, to me, what I've started to do is let's pre-sell right away. Then when I get the cards, I kind of look at how many do I have left? And then do I want to grade any of them? Are there any, does this player and this card project to have value 2 months from now if I can get it to the grading company quickly? Historically, Topps Now has graded far better than Panini Instant. However, I did have a 84% gem rate with my Caitlin Clark draft night cards. So I think it's fun to have both. I think it's fun to be able to buy your parallels from Panini because those sell well on the secondary market too. I think it's fun to know, okay, I've got 25 in a brick coming from Panini, and that's what it is. I like the fact that I might get a parallel or an auto in the Topps Now, but I'll say this. I haven't had one since I got a Ken Griffey Jr. one like back in 2021.
Yeah, I've never had one.
And,
that's not true. I've had one.
Okay, so I've had one, and I've probably bought at least 50 different Topps Now products, bricks of Topps Now products, and I just opened my Caleb and my Jaden's, the first one that came out, and nothing, just 20 bases. So what I did, and this kind of goes to Terry's question, which ones are you going to grade? I already went ahead and sent to PSA I pre-sold out 6 of the 20 Jadens. So I shipped them off and I made quite a bit of profit on those. Like I doubled my money on those. And then I sent the other 14 immediately to PSA along with all 20 of the Caleb's. None of the 20 Caleb's pre-sold at all. So, and I think that's because, and I'm a Caleb believer. I think Caleb he's going to have his moments later on in this season. The Bears are 2-2, I think, or are they 3-1? The Bears have a winning record. I know that. And so the Bears, thank you. So the Bears are in a position where Caleb is kind of like in the same position as Bo Nix, only with higher draft capital, probably more hype when he does have a spike week. And I do think, even though Jaden Daniels is off to a better start, I do think Caleb Williams is going to have his moments this season. And whatever Caleb Williams cards are at grading are still going to be very valuable when they come back. And whatever you have in your inventory that you haven't sent off to grading, you should be able to double, even triple your money on those. So I'm still excited, even though the Caleb Williams haven't paid off as much as the Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Malik Neighbors. And I did also buy the Marvin Harrison Jr. Panini Instant where he's diving into the end zone just because, Lefty, he has limited supply. Marvin Harrison Jr. does. And one more thing I'll add that doesn't have anything, before I pass it over to you, one more thing I'll add that doesn't have anything to do with Panini Instant or Topps Now, but it does have to do with getting inventory of these guys, is my grades just popped on my Score a Treat Marvin Harrison cards, the green bats and the orange pumpkins. And I want to say I graded like 8 of them or 9 of them, and I got all but one PSA 10. So when those fuckers get to me, they're showing up tomorrow. And when those get to me, I'm looking at, okay, how do I list these things where there's some sort of Halloween ending? I'm going to look at Marvin Harrison Jr.'s schedule. Do I list them to end on Halloween? Do I list them on Halloween? Am I overthinking that? Do I just go ahead and list them because they're Marvin Harrison Jr. in a bin OBO type of situation? But I'm looking at some profit on some Marvin Harrison Jr. score retreats. And for any of you who bought Jaden Daniels score retreats, good on you, because those should do very well also.
Yeah. Yeah, my buddy Ivan just picked up a score retreat or whatever that's called. I can't say it correctly, but those parallels.
Score a treat.
They are they're at Walmart actually now because they have 3-pack. It's a 40-pack of 3 cards per pack. So it's like a ridiculous thing to open, but it's designed to be able to give away in a trick or treat format. Well, anyway, he bought them. We opened them just for fun. And we ended up getting a lot of the rookies that we were looking for. Now, what I will say is, I don't know if it was just his cut or anything. They're all off center. Every single one of them is off center.
Yeah.
So the fact that you got some good production of them, maybe it was like first off the line or something like that. They took a little more care with the pre-orders and stuff like that. Regardless, fun cards to look at. Very thin, very like old school card, not thick card stock where you're going to have massive print lines or anything like that, or dings or anything. Sometimes actually like the paper Bowmans and some of the other like thinner cards actually grade better just because of what they are. So yeah, I think this could be a play that's a little bit sneaky. I think it's like one that you made maybe out of like, oh, like this could be a fun one, but I think this could maybe be a really profitable one because the cards are so unique looking.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think, the reason I bought those is really to go along with this theme of how do I get inventory of these guys early on in their rookie season when they're going to have the most eyeballs on them. Like, I think these guys, it's not that Neighbors and Harrison and Daniels and Williams and all the other rookie quarterbacks aren't going to have eyeballs on them, but I think the most interest, and this is actually a good segue into another thing we want to talk about, but the most interest in the NFL is like really at the end of August. And I think it's probably going to start dwindling here in a second into a midseason dip. So, Bill Bain in the live chat says list when he has a big game. I mean, literally what I'm going to do is like they show up at my house tomorrow along with some cards from some premium members that are grading with us at nooffseason.com, which you can do. Go check that out. But I'm going to list them in a bin OBO. I'm thinking for like $100, and because I'm only like, these cards raw cost me like $2 each. So I'm only really like $21 into these cards. So if I go bin OBO at like, 100 or 110 and just field offers for Marvin Harrison Jr. and then maybe flip it to an auction later if I have to, for whatever reason, I think that's the play. That's almost the play with everything right now, to be honest with you. So before we get into our top sports cards to buy, graded, and flip, I think I want to talk about, interest potentially dwindling early on in a season. We've seen it happen with basketball. We know that it sometimes happens with football and baseball. And really, I think that's it could be interest dwindling. But the other way to look at it is the pattern recognition historically, Lefty, telling us, and this is something that you alluded to a while ago with baseball, but is the pattern recognition indicating to us that we need to start looking at selling our cards before each of the seasons start? We've talked about it with football. We've talked about it with baseball. We've talked about it with basketball. And the reason I bring it up is because as much as we've talked about it, I'm seeing it even more glaring this football season that, wow, these prices are plummeting for guys. And I don't know if it's just the recency bias from some of the guys we're about to talk about from a quarterback standpoint, or if it's just not as much interest after a season gets underway. But for whatever reason, the market keeps telling me we need to sell and have our cards listed earlier and earlier prior to the start of a season. What are you seeing?
I mean, I started thinking that direction during spring training of this year, where we were preparing our Jackson holidays, And I was looking at the market and realizing, okay, there's a lot of Jackson Holiday out there. It's not like there's only 5 of these guys that are out there, but you're looking at eBay and there's just nothing outside of cards posted that are, $1,000 for $100 card, like there's just nothing and so it was very apparent to me that because of the pop count that we knew was out there and because of the listings available, there were people that were all waiting on the season to start, like savvy sellers were all going to wait until April 1st. And so my thought process was, I have enough success handle on this for I can list in March and we can sell with meat on the bone per se. And we've talked about that a couple of weeks. But now that's rolled into how I'm kind of preparing all of my thought processes to think, okay, how can we be selling when other people are still buying? Because honestly, Paul, the more we do this, the larger our platform gets, the more people that we have doing the same strategy as us, the more savvy we will have to get as strategists. And we're never going to not share the strategy with our audience, but it's just the deeper we go, the more it calls us into intentionality on making our strategy even better. Like for those of you out there, Paul and I and Turner and and Andy are always working towards trying to get better and better and better and better at the game. We don't have the same fundamentals that we had 2 years ago. We barely have some of the same strategies that we have a year ago because the market is constantly evolving. And as professionals in this sphere, we are trying to be on the cutting edge of all of these strategies going forward. And so I think right now, the strategy to getting your cards, not necessarily for the most money, but out of your portfolio with money back in your pocket, I think we could hold on for the 100%. And we've talked about this a lot, where we're selling at the 85%, comfortably knowing that there could be 15% more on the top end, but knowing that we've made 70% profit margin on this or something, maybe not 70%, but you know what I'm saying? Like we've made a good, healthy percentage. We can still take our win while handing the bread to somebody else that has enough to chew on for them to make money down the road as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like a good example of, what we're saying is like, be prepared to make plays where you sell before seasons start as the hype rises. And we'll get into basketball here in a second because that's next, and hockey. But basketball has a much, much, much bigger market than the hockey market. So we'll primarily talk about basketball. But like Anthony Richardson Prism Silver PSA 10, in the last 14 days, that card it sold yesterday for $203. So just to give you guys an idea, I bought that card. I bought 4 of those cards for $400 each at, I think 2 of them at the National and 2 of them at Fanatics Fest. And so that card did get to 560 on September 28th. It was at 538 on September 17th. It was at 574 on September 10th. It was at 541 right before the season started on September 4th. So a lot of market data significantly over $500. Guys, it sold for $230 on September 30th and then $203 on October 1st. Now, he hasn't performed very well, and then he did get injured, which it's not a serious injury. He should be back pretty soon. I'm kind of shocked that card in particular has gone down so much. I'm talking about it obviously because I'm still holding 4 of them, but I think it's a good example of where, like, do I call it an L of the week? Do I go, hey, I'm $1,600 into cards that are now collectively worth $800. Like I'm down 50% significantly here. I'm down 1,800 on my Anthony Richardson. Now, I think he's in a very different situation. Am I happy about this? No. Do I wish I would have really this was another thing, I'm just going to sidebar real quick, but it's relevant. Lefty says this too sometimes on the show. We do a lot of plays so that we can experience sometimes the opposite of what we would normally do, so that we can come back and tell you guys, like, as an experiment, here's what we did, because we want to let you guys know what works better than what works the best and what doesn't work as well, right? Well, I can tell you, and Lefty can probably attest to this, under normal circumstances, I would have sold this card at the 574. In fact, I have far more stories of where I've sold cards earlier than, trying to hold for a performance spike. And I'll get out of it and I'll be like, I made 20%. I made 10%. I could have made, 70. I could have doubled up if I would have waited. This is a case where it went the other way. I held thinking, hey, all AR has to do is come out, put up a couple good fantasy games, and all of a sudden, this card's going to go up to potentially $1,000 card. Well, it's gone in the other direction. He hasn't had any really good games. He got injured. Luckily, the Colts are still 2-2. But now what I hate the most about this is Joe Flacco in the mix? Like, is this a case where it's like panic?
Hell yeah, he is, brother.
No, like so I guess the point that I'm trying to make that hopefully is relevant to everyone is, I really, really do have so many use cases on both sides of the coin for let's go ahead and liquidate upon the hype rise of a season, take the risk out of the performance and the injury, and then let's move our money into other things. And will we miss out on performance spikes some of the time? Yes. But will we win pretty much all the time, even though it might only be a 5, 10, 20% win? Yes. Now, I've also said this. What I probably should have done is just held one of them, right? I probably should have sold 3 of them when they were up to 570 and held one of them in case there was a performance spike. But look, this is why we have the show. We're not perfect. We like to mitigate risk. We like to give people tools and guidelines and strategies and plays to make money flipping sports cards. We don't win all the time. So just real quick, other guys, Bryce Young, Will Levis, like even CJ Stroud's down. I think he's in a different category, obviously. And then you've got Tua. So like, I guess I want to segue into this other topic, Lefty, real quick. When is it time to cut your losses on disappointing QBs? I don't think we should sell all of these guys right now, but I think that we need to be in a situation where with AR, we probably need to be looking to sell as soon as he does have a good game, regardless of what the pricing's at. And then I think with Tua, he's in a whole different category. Schefter says he's going to be back week 8, so we'll talk about that. But I think Will Levis and Bryce Young, are we just cutting our losses on those guys right now? Like, are we just getting out? What are you thinking with those guys?
Well, I think I just wanted to point out, like, we make all these assumptions that all these quarterbacks or all these players actually are going to be healthy. That's like the one thing in our hobby that we can't predict. We cannot predict injury. We know that there's some players that are more risk tolerant than others and things like this. And we even talked about Anthony Richardson playing the way he does is potential for a lot of risk because he has the similar RG3-like want to get the 1 or 2 extra yards instead of the slide. Like we've talked about this. But at the same time, we make these predictions and we make these investments based on their top end, and we have a risk analysis. Like I think maybe down the road when we have like a full-on floor of a flat where we have all these people working for nooffseason.com, we have a risk analysis person that's looking at risk analysis in the way that a big company would do that. But right now it's like the risk, like injury is not something that we necessarily go into an investment expecting. So some of these guys that we've had this year, Tua, Anthony Richardson, they are dealing with some injuries. Anthony Richardson looks like he's going to be fine. Tua is always a risk for injury. I don't know how that guy is still alive sometimes. When you see DeMar Hamlin going head to head with Tua, and you just seem like one of these guys is going to come up off the field. But I think for your question about which quarterback should we cut in early, on Monday, Turner talked about how he's holding on to Bryce Young because he made the big investment. He said he's going to cry about it until he's 50 years old because it was a big investment for him. But the way Andy Dalton is playing with this Carolina team, they don't even look like the same team that when Bryce Young was on the field. Like, it looks energetic. It looks a little bit hopeful. Like Andy Dalton has this team looking like a 500 team rather than a 0-win team. And Bryce Young had a 0-win team out there. Like, it was bad. So I think we're cutting the losses on him, or at least I am. And Will Levis, I just don't like the Titans franchise in general. So I actually was fading Will Levis from the beginning. So I would fade him still now. And the only thing that I would say that would benefit Will Levis is if you're in the Lexington area, like I am, and he has still a lot of fans here. So I'm fading both of those guys. I'm holding on Anthony Richardson just because I think he is a top end kind of guy. Plus, he has a little bit more invested buyers from a financial standpoint. There's people holding his cards like you, Paul, that still have money invested. So that profit margin, I think, will rise because you'll have more diamond hands that are holding for their returns to go back up. You won't see people selling off halfway up the slide. So those are the two guys that I would be comfortable getting out of, knowing that it would take a miracle for their cards to go back up where we thought they were, at least this year.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to what you just said. I think out of all those guys, I have a plan for
Did I miss a guy?
For all four of those guys. No, you didn't miss a guy. I'm just going to say, I think the guy that I'm getting out of right now, and I've already sold, I only had 2 of his cards and I went ahead and sold both of them over the weekend, is Will Levis. I mean, to me, and sorry, Bill Bain, it seems like maybe Bill Bain.
Bill's hurt.
I live in Middle Tennessee. So I'm a Lions fan because I'm from Detroit, but I'm also a Titans fan. And so Titans are like my number 2 team, obviously. And so I just don't think Will Levis is going to get the juice back in the card market. Second round.
Not that
pick.
guy. He's not that guy.
He's never had it. He was really a flyer to begin with. And I think it's just a case where, look, we're $100, $120 down on him, on his Prism Silver. Hopefully we're not holding that many. Let's just sell him, because I just don't see him bouncing back. Who I do see, so I do have a plan for each player. My plan for Bryce Young is, because he was the first overall pick, and even though it's bad in terms of like how he's looked on the field, there have been trade rumors really since the minute he was benched by Dave Canales. And so we've also seen Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield resurrect their careers after being former number
Sam
1 overall
Darnold
picks. Sam Darnold, not the number 1 overall pick, but close. I mean,
the Panthers though.
top 10 pick from the Panthers. Sam Darnold, you're right. Sam Darnold, it needs to be in that conversation. So we have history behind a change of scenery with a guy. Now, it didn't work for Trey Lance, but it didn't work for Zach Wilson. So we have history going the other way too. But we also saw a little bit more interest in those guys' cards when they were traded. And so if and when Bryce Young gets traded or gets back on the field, one of two is going to happen. He's either going to get traded or he's going to get back on the field as a starter. When that happens, you sell Bryce Young. Same thing with Tua. The minute, and Chad Dyer said this in the live chat already, but I was already thinking it. The minute he's announced as the starter, you list those Tua cards and you just try to get rid of them. And look, if you were highly invested in Tua, we're not right all the time. We like to say when we're right, but we also admit when we're wrong. And yes, he had a history of concussions, But can you really predict when these injuries are going to happen and take somebody off the field? You really can't. And so a lot of our Tua cards on the top sports cards to buy, graded, and flip episodes on Wednesdays were like $20 mosaic NFL debuts. Occasionally we talked about like $140 optic hollow or $170 optic hollow PSA 10. Are people potentially under on a lot of our Tua recommendations? Yes. However, hopefully you guys aren't, thousands of dollars under on our Tua recommendations. But regardless, we will see Tua back on the field. We just will. And that's when you sell him, because you never know how long he's going to be on the field, unfortunately. And it sucks. It sucks. I think Jordan Love probably deserves to be in this discussion a little bit. And yes, CJ Stroud is down. For those of you asking or wondering, like, yes, he is down. Like his Prism Silver PSA 10 is down to like under a $700 card. And that's a card that was trading for $1,000 before the season started, like consistently. Maybe it started to go down to around 800. Now, I think CJ Stroud and Jordan Love are not even in the same discussion as the quarterbacks that we've just talked about.
Yeah.
They have more of a track record of success and recency bias for that success and hobby love and hobby hype. And those things combined really typically result in, the historical data tells us that when you have the players of that profile, really all it takes is like a hot streak, like 2 or 3 games put together, which is totally achievable for those two guys, where they're just off the charts good and winning. Their prices go, right back up. Like they soar past where they should be and back to where we thought they were going to be. So they're more a little bit longer term hold guys. What's interesting here is, how do you start to juggle your basketball, baseball, football portfolio going into a time when really we're dwindling to the end of football card selling season, and we're already approaching basketball card selling season. So how do we navigate that, right? I think we have to look at cutting our losses on some of the football cards, which is why we wanted to bring that to the table. And I think there's still going to be some buying opportunities coming up for football, because once we get into the midseason dip, which is coming after October, the midseason dip happens every year. So we got to look out for that and start to buy back into some football cards that might have selling markers for the playoffs potentially, or past the playoffs. And basketball, I think we have to be quick. I think we have to not lose sight of what we just talked about. We just talked about football cards coming down after the start of the season, even for some of the top players, and how it happened in baseball season already back in March. So now let's not repeat the same mistakes for basketball, right? Like if you have some of these guys that are up right now, I think we need to look at selling off some of your portfolio so that you can mitigate risk and potentially move back in when the prices go down. So what I did was I pulled the following guys in market movers: Giannis, Paolo, LaMelo, Ant-Man, Tatum, Shea, SGA, Chet, and Wemby. And I probably missed some guys, but I just tried to go with some of the top guys that are more ultra-modern rookies with a lot of interest. Now, there are, as you can probably imagine, dozens of cards for these guys that are up by $30 or more. And so I just think you have to look at where you are. And Lefty, you made this point earlier when you were talking about going through your baseball portfolio before in February and March, you were thinking about, who am I up on, right? So if you're up, I would say $50 or more on any one card, regardless of what card it is. It's at least worth looking at. Should I list this now? And what format should I list it in? Anthony Edwards 2020 Optic Hollow PSA 10 is up $90. Like, did you know that? Like, SGA 2018 Optic Shock PSA 10 is up $62. These are in the last 14 days. So you don't have to have like a massive card. Those are both higher, like not super high pop cards, but like a good chance people out there listening to the show own these cards. Anthony Edwards 2020 Optic Purple PSA 10 up $55. Giannis 2013 SP Authentic Base PSA 10 up almost $40. I mean, that's a pop 3,000 card. Jason Tatum 2017 Silver Prism PSA 10 up $36. So that's not like earth shattering, but given what we just talked about with football and what we know to be true with historical data pattern recognition for basketball after the season starts, for like 3 months after the season starts, typically prices go down. So I think you got to look at what card you're holding. And I think you have to diversify your portfolio a bit by selling off some of these guys, the ones that you're up on. So it can never be a blanket statement like now's the time to sell all your basketball cards or panic sell all your football cards. Like we're not that show. We're very, very granular. What card are you holding? How much did you pay for that card? What is that card worth now? What's coming up on the calendar? And who is that player? How does that player project? So if you want more help on your particular situation, going to nooffseason.com/ask and submitting a question there, getting a free 30-day trial there. If you're not already a member, Lefty and I will answer it every Friday on the premium pod for you, because you're going to be able to tell us all the details. We'll get in there, give you a detailed analysis back. But I just want to put everybody on notice what I'm thinking about. Lefty, any thoughts related to the basketball card market and just kind of what I said of like, because I think this is like the tornado of the sports card season. Like tornadoes come in, they happen real fast, and then they leave. And so like this is October 2nd. You have to be like, holy crap, baseball playoffs. You've got football, high level of interest, but that dwindles kind of as Halloween approaches. And and then you've got basketball, like, holy crap, it's here. Like, it's already here. I had that moment the other day. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I've already been buying basketball cards. I actually bought 6 cards last week, all for, I had the opportunity to get all of them in for under 80% value of what their comps are at. And I told the guy straight up, I was like, I'll buy some basketball cards from you, but this is where I'm at with it. And he's like, all right, great. If you're buying, 6 or more, I'm in. And so I bought Reed Shepard, Angel Reese, which is a whole different situation, Paige Beckers, SGA, and Caitlin Clark. So yes, that's some WNBA players and some college girls players, and actually some rookies. And it's a smattering of basketball. It's not just the stars. I did have an SGA in there though, and so I think it's there, but I'm not like full on sending into large basketball cards like I thought I was going to, because the more we've been saying this, and we're like, yeah, we're going to prepare for November, December is a big buying season. We've been talking about this, but then in my head, the NBA season was not as close to November and December as I thought it was, but now I'm realizing that's 3 months away. I think where I probably will be at with basketball is waiting for a good Panini Instant or a Topps Now play. That's probably where I'm at with it, to be honest. And so I've got most of my money tied up in Arch Madness anyway right now. So let's get after that. So continuing to move, I probably won't move big into basketball like I thought. Probably could have moved big into basketball at the National, really. And that's probably where I could have made the best. Actually, that is where I made the best play. I got a orange cracked ice Wemby that ended up being a PSA 10. So, and I'm going to make good money on that as well. So, Wemby was 2 of the 6 big cards that I bought at the National. So let's get down to practicals. You love the Lions. We've talked about selling before the big moment. I've got Jared Goff cards. What do you do, Paul? Are you waiting for playoffs, or are you selling now because he went for a perfect Monday Night Football run and he caught a touchdown pass?
Yeah, I mean,
this is the exact scenario that we are in, a scenario where you could sell right now, or you could wait on the 15% playoff run. What are you doing?
I'm not auctioning. I'm not auctioning right now. I'm listing your Goffs in a buy it now or best offer, and I'm pricing it at probably 2x what you paid for it, because assuming it's not worth more than 2, I think like sometimes I'll say to people, price your buy it now or best offer at 2x what you paid for it. But people will be like, well, what if it's actually worth more than that? Well, then obviously like list it more. I list it higher.
Well, then good on you and get out of there.
Yeah, then it's like maybe you can auction it at that point. You should auction it. That's when you should auction it. With golf, like I have one golf card that I bought at the National Raw, blue out of 149 optic, 2016 rated rookie. It's a PSA 9. So I don't have the 2 cards that you have. You have some two amazing cards, but what I'm doing is, I think this with my card and with your 2, what I would do is buy an hour best offer at 2x, because you're going to have watchers, views, and offers potentially after what happened Monday night. People believe in the Lions. People love the Lions after last season. It was the Lions. I think there were some polls out there, some data that said like, I don't know, a ridiculous percentage of people outside of Detroit were like pulling for the Lions when their playoff, like their team was not in the playoffs kind of a thing. Yeah. And so I think that holds true into this season. Knock on wood, they're healthy, right? So like they're just, Goff is going to be a guy that worst case scenario, you should make a lot of money on him in the playoffs, but there's no reason why you shouldn't have that card listed now, really, because of everything that we've talked about. If you can get the money now, get it, because we don't know what's going to happen. I just said worst case scenario, you should make money on him on the playoffs. Actually, worst case scenario is like he goes out with an injury this week. So I think I just contradicted myself there, but basically everyone gets the gist of what I'm saying. It's like, you need to take advantage of performance spikes, have your guys listed. If they don't go for what you want them to go for, consider flipping to auctions. I think Goff is an exception to that. I think he's a guy that, barring injury, projects to be a guy in the playoffs that should make you some money. And I think the overall takeaway that I'll give everybody on this whole discussion is I would rather see everyone strategically move out of their baseball, unless you're specifically holding a younger prospect, a guy that is not in the playoffs, and you're holding them for March. I would like to see everybody look to get out of all of their guys that are in the playoffs. I would like to see everyone get out of all of their NFL cards, whether you're up or down on them, by the end of October. And for Tua, I think you just need to hold until he's announced the starter again, which Schefter says will be week 8 or week 9. And then I think you're in a position, and with basketball, same thing. I think unless you're holding a monster basketball card or a monster portfolio that you have a specific plan for, I think you really, really need to look to list your basketball cards and buy it now or best offers, get out of them by the end of this month. The reason why is because I want everybody to be able to potentially get back into some things during an expected pricing dip, which typically happens after Thanksgiving. I don't think we should all rush. We're definitely gonna have shows at that time, which we'll talk about this, but I don't think we should plan on rushing and buying everything that's down in that time frame, because I think we need to think about whenever we buy something, how long are we going to have to hold that for? Right? Like, yeah. I think that when we buy in November and December, I want to buy things that I don't have to hold for longer than maybe 6 weeks or maybe 12 weeks max, right? Like 3 months.
For real. Yeah.
And if I'm holding something 3 months, I want it to be a Shohei. I want it to be, I don't know, a LeBron. Like I want it to be safer guys that aren't necessarily like the Anthony Richardsons of the world. So, even Joe Burrow, like I think you mentioned this a minute ago, but like Turner and I both bought into just Joe Burrow Prism PSA 10 base cards. And so it's like, I thought Joe Burrow was going to be one of the safest players last December because he was injured. This is the first time ever to go buy Joe Burrow cards on a discount. Did I make money on Joe Burrow cards by buying them in December? Absolutely I did. But
Yeah.
could I have played that a little bit more strategically? For sure. And so I just want to make sure that I'm a little bit more calculated with what I buy this November and December.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. I mean, like we said earlier in this episode, we are continually honing in on the more and more strategy, more and more craft. We talked about long-term holds. Then we talked about 6 to 12-month holds. Now we're on 90-day holds, and
moving
Panini
faster
Instant
and
pre-sailing.
Yeah.
Is there a way to make money fast in this thing? Is it a quote unquote smash and grab, which is a term that they use in soccer for when you're down and you just create a win and you get out of there before somebody realizes that you weren't supposed to win that game? Can you do that? Can we get in on these Panini Instants before people are really aware of it? And we're not tricking them. That kind of sounds, that really didn't come out like that, like I wanted it to, I don't think, but recover that for me.
Well, I think, the point that I think we're both trying to make this whole episode, that it looks like the live chat totally understands, is like, we're putting you on notice. Now is the time to be going through like all of your cards and saying, what future does this card have? Like what future do I have with this card? Who is this player? What is this card? How much did I pay for it? What does it project to go up at all from where it is? Even if I'm under on it, if I'm over on it, I should probably sell it right now. Ziggy mentioned Wemby. Wemby's a guy that I said on Monday's show that like I liquidated. So going into 2024, my sports card investment portfolio was like 25% Shedeur Sanders. Now it's like 5% Shedeur Sanders because I've sold a lot of my Shedeur Sanders cards because I learned from my Caleb Williams experience. It's probably better to move faster. We're just learning to move faster than we ever thought. Like it's move faster than we thought. So I moved faster on Shedeur than I did on Caleb. Got some good wins there. I moved really fast on Arch Manning. Got some good wins there. I think with Wemby, now 17% of my portfolio is Wemby, and that's the highest that I have dedicated to any one player. And Chad Dyer and Ziggy in the live chat are basically having a conversation about, do we list Wemby cards now? Chad says all Wemby should be listed and buy it now or best offer. I agree. I think, there's so much interest in Wemby. But I also think I'm a believer in Wemby. I think he's going to have some performance spikes. I think that he could lead the Spurs to the playoffs, but I want to mitigate my risk. So I want to hold back some of my Wembys for those performance spikes, but I want to list probably 80% of my Wembys now because I'm going to get a high return on them. I'm going to make that 10, 20%, mitigate that risk, but hold back some Wembys for like when I've said he's going to have a quadruple double at some point. So when that happens, that's for sure going to happen. When that happens, and then I think he leads the Spurs to the playoffs sooner rather than later, those things go crazy high. So I think it's about moving faster. I think it's about selling off all but maybe one or two of your cards for the performance spike while you mitigate against your risk by getting out, right? So you're up, and then what you're holding back is more house money, I guess is a good way to say it. So, but so a lot of this episode has been talking about selling, which I think is important because a lot of times we talk about buying. We're going to talk about buying next because regardless of what point we are throughout the year, astute sports card flippers will find deals. And that's a big part of the formula in making money is buying at the right price. And that's what our literal formula at nooffseason.com helps you do. So time to move over to our formula-based sports card rankings at nooffseason.com. Premium members get these updated every day on our sports card rankings page. On Mondays, we talk about raw to grade. On Wednesdays, we talk about already graded. So that's what we're going to talk about now. And let's just have a discussion about some of these guys up here because regardless of what we all just said about selling, there are always opportunities to buy. And that's what I want everybody in the hobby doing really is going to our sports card formula-based rankings. It's the only place in the world that you can go and get a list of sports cards that not only are down based on where they should be projected at in the coming weeks or months, but it gives you the target cost. It gives you the projected average sale price based on historical data, and it ranks it by ROI. So it's pretty simple to follow. You just go to the top of it. And let's just talk about some of the cards here near the top, because I think the context around this needs to be, just because this card has sold for this amount in the past at a similar point in time, do these guys project as good buys now based on their current situation? So we've got, like, for example, we've got a few Jalen Hurts cards, a few Justin Herbert cards, a Jared Goff card, a couple Tua cards, a couple Joe Burrow cards, a Brandon Ayuk card. We've got an Anthony Edwards and a Scoot Henderson card, some Dak Prescott cards, Jason Tatum cards, right? So these are good names to think about at this point in the year. Jalen Hurts, Tua, Jordan Love and Joe Burrow to a certain extent, even Justin Herbert. We kind of know why they're down. You know, Jalen Hurts, big loss against Tampa Bay. Like, as well as he's played, hasn't played well this year. It's kind of been an enigma. You've got Herbert, who's in a new offense, winning, but also injured and just lost to the Chiefs. So some things are up in the air here. Dak is always a guy that fits that category, that gray area. Burrow starting to come alive, but some of his prices are still down. So let's just go through some cards here. Jalen Hurts, 2020 Optic Holo PSA 10. This is a card that we've always liked. It's gotten up to safely 360 in the past. It's at 170 right now. So there's a potential 70% ROI. Another Jalen Hurts card, his 2020 Select 50 Concourse PSA 10, less of a risk. $24 target cost. Projected average sale price, $65. So that is our number one already graded card right now. 117% projected ROI there. Lefty, do you believe in Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, he's the number one quarterback outside of this Washington rookie that's going bananas. You know, like, outside of that, like, the past couple of years, he's the number one fantasy quarterback. And like we've talked about, fantasy numbers do drive card sales to some degree. And so when we're looking for a playoff contender in that division, it looks like the Eagles or the Cowboys, but you could say that the Eagles look a little more menacing than they do. And so I think he's going to play NFL playoff games. And so Jalen is still a guy that I'm excited about going forward. I mean, he's not on the list of the guys that we talked about earlier, not even close. You know, he's not even a guy that I'm potentially like, well, you know, he's not playing well. No, he's not. I'm not even thinking about that. So I'm still in on him. And if you could potentially find 70% return in a dip in the midseason for Jalen Hurts, that's a good return, I think.
I'm with you on that, and so is Chad Dyer. I mean, I think the Eagles are a very solid team. Obviously, anything can happen in any given week in the NFL, but I mean, they look like they have what it takes to make it pretty far this year, and at this price, you know, and this is the most recent comp, $24 for a 2020 Select Concourse, basically a base card PSA 10. Not that big of a risk. Now, the Optic Holo, 169, definitely more money, but much higher upside from a net dollar profit. So the ROI is lower, but the net dollar profit much higher on that Optic Holo. So I'm with you on that. Okay, let's just go ahead and talk about Dak. Why not? Dak, 2016 Optic Holo PSA 10. People get fired up when we talk about Dak. So $103 most recent comp.
Everybody gets fired up about anytime anybody talks about Dak.
Exactly. But it could very easily go up to a $220 card. So will that happen, Lefty? I'm asking you to get your crystal ball out here. Will that happen?
No, I think the Jalen Hurts play happens before the Dak play happens.
Now, Joe Burrow would be the other guy that I think is really worth talking about here. I mean, we talked about Jared Goff already, so we'll hit on that one in a second. But Joe Burrow's 2020 Prism Base PSA 10, the card that we've talked about a lot in the last several months because Turner and I have been following the formula and buying it, is down to $99. Now, I bought in at $125. I think Turner bought in around there as well. So we're not like getting slaughtered here. It still has a $220 upside, which is a 78% ROI. So Lefty, I don't think you bought into that card when Turner and I did. So you're a good person to ask this question to. Do you go ahead and buy that Joe Burrow 2020 Prism Base 307 PSA 10 at $99 with a 78% projected ROI per the formula?
I probably am actually not making this play, and not because I don't like Joe Burrow, but because of the odds of him making a playoff run here. I think that line is still not good. The Jamar Chase has been verbal about him not wanting to sign another contract in Cincinnati. You're going to have just speculation there about what happens next with him. Joe Burrow, we have seen, has had an injury history at this point. When do we say he's injury prone? You know, like he's got it in there, but I don't think it's this season. Plus, the statistics of a guy making the playoffs for an 0-3 team are pretty horrific. And so I'm probably fading on Joe until the offseason. I still think long-term I'm in on him, but not right now. I'd probably rather buy that Dak Prescott than the Joe Burrow, which is strange. I just wouldn't have believed I would have said that a month and a half ago.
Drop a comment
it's all
below
about this
at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Dak or Joe Burrow? I want to know what you think. That's a good one, Lefty. All right. So the formula-based rankings has a ton of different opportunities. We're just trying to give you some context around it because if you buy an already graded card, you do have to have a selling marker. Now, the formula helps with that, but you have to know the context around like Tua, Jared Goff. We've talked a little bit about that already. The raw to grade formula, though, is a little bit more straightforward with the upside. Of course, you have the risk of the grade that you might get. So, Lefty, let's go to basketball real quick before we wrap up the show, because I think there's some interesting ones here. I think Scoot Henderson 2023 Prism Silver PSA 10. We've talked about this one before at a $90 target cost. Historical data with players like Scoot Henderson in the upcoming months show that this could be a $200 card. 78% projected ROI. Is there risk here? Absolutely. I mean, we don't know who Scoot Henderson is at all as an NBA player. We just haven't really seen it yet. I mean, he could be a bust, or he could be someone that simply just needs to have a few good games strung together for his prices to skyrocket. We just don't know that yet. So that's an interesting play. I think I like that play just simply because we don't know who he is yet. And if you're buying it at $90, I think that's pretty close to the floor of what that card's going to be, unless he goes and does something stupid off the court and gets like canceled. I really, really don't see that card going much lower than that. And just to lock up a Scoot PSA 10 with some upside, I like it. I mean, could it be a $50 card in the future? Sure. But if I'm paying $90 for it, I'm feeling pretty good about the odds going in my way of it being closer to a $150 or $200 card at some point this upcoming basketball season. We'll see, but that's how I feel about the Scoot. Now we've got two guys. I'm going to ask Lefty. I'm going to ask you to pick between these two cards. Anthony Edwards, 2020 Select Blue Retail PSA 10 for $44 with an upside of 97 per the formula and an ROI of 76. And I'm fascinated by this next card. I'm fascinated by it consistently. Jason Tatum's 2017 Prism Base PSA 10. It has gone down to $96. And basketball cards don't, for a player of Jason Tatum's ilk and popularity and recognition, when you're at that level, they don't necessarily rise the way you would think they would rise. Like Giannis doesn't necessarily spike. He rises, but he doesn't spike. Tatum rises, but he doesn't spike. The guys that spike truly are the guys that you don't really expect to play that well. So Jason Tatum
Right.
coming off a championship. Now, he had a dud of an Olympic performance, but whatever. $96 buy-in point for his Prism-based PSA 10. $200 upside. Now, you have to pay twice as much to get the Tatum, and it's basically the same ROI. But who do you buy between Anthony Edwards, Select Blue Retail rookie PSA 10, and Jason Tatum Prism base rookie PSA 10?
I still think give me Jason. Not Jason Tatum. Edwards. Give me Edwards because he's a guy that people love to love, and Tatum is a guy people love to hate. And so it's just like, for some reason, Tatum. A lot of people believe that Tatum is not that guy, which I'm one of them. I am one of those people that have now been on the Tatum, the haterade train, like the hater train for Tatum. Like, I'm on it.
Jason Tatum?
The Jason Tatum train, bro. Like, that's totally me. As much as we're on Arch Madness, I'm on the Jason Tatum train. So, and I absolutely love Edwards. Like, this guy is electric. Yeah. So anytime I can get back into him, I've got to get at least one of his cards before the season starts. Got to get at least one just for the meme of it, if nothing else. So
our guy Alandis Brassel in the live chat says Edwards over Tatum all day. Kurt Moody says Ant. And our guy Alandis, remember Alandis was the one, like, I think we want to hire him because of his analysis of the Fanatics Collect versus eBay auctions. Alandis says, I've been loading up on Scoot. Living in Portland probably has juiced my... That's good to know, though. We got boots on the ground in Portland. So thanks, Alandis.
Hey, but look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Our whole chat is saying Ant.
Yep, that's true.
Maybe we should take that into account. And go where they ain't.
Oh, wait, what are you saying? Clarify.
All I'm saying is, when in betting standards, when the public is on the line, typically it's smart to go sharp on it and go to the other side. So am I saying invest in Tatum? No, I'm saying maybe we double down on Scoot instead, baby. Maybe it's like, forget Ant versus Tatum. Gotcha. Maybe it's all Scoot, baby.
Lefty's giving it a very, very sports card strategy show. Classic, true. Go where they ain't. I love it. I love it. And look, there's risk involved in Scoot. There's less risk involved in Ant. I mean, it is actually like a pretty good market study to see our live chat loving Ant that much. To me, that means there's probably less upside in Ant, but there's like a very, very, very high floor. Now, I will say this, if he does make it to the NBA Finals, there's probably more upside in that guy than anyone else. But that's a very big if he makes it to the NBA Finals. Of course, doesn't have Cat as a teammate anymore.
NBA Finals,
that's Julius Randle.
You need to have some Dillingham. You need to have some Dillingham autos if they make it to the NBA Finals.
Let me give you
Karl Anthony Towns just got traded.
I know. That's what I just said. Julius Randle is now, I believe, the teammate. Which and I don't know. I mean,
Vincenzo's on the team. Come on.
Yeah. So I think that's them basically just saying, like, Ant, this is for sure your team. So Ant's the guy. But
yeah.
I will go into my deep, deep, deep bag of sleepers real quick. I don't even know when this guy was a rookie. I don't even know what cards he has. This is how deep of a sleeper this is. But I know NBA basketball, and I know enough to tell you with all confidence, and this is a very big if because I am horrible at predicting this, if the Minnesota Timberwolves win the NBA championship, the player on that team who will play a role bigger than any one of us thinks, other than me, because I know this will happen, if the Minnesota Timberwolves win the championship, and this guy's cards will go to the moon, Naz Reid. Naz Reid is a freaking stud. Naz,
Sixth Man of the Year candidate.
Is the guy for that team. And I want to know if you were yelling at your phones while you were listening to this on Apple and Spotify, Naz Reid. And if you were, honestly, email me at paul@nooffseason.com. I might have to send you a gift because I've never
There is
talked about
Nas
Nas
Reed
Reed on
autos
this
out
show,
there.
but with good reason, because I think Nas Reed would probably lose you money from a sports card perspective, but not if the Timberwolves win the championship.
That's a big if, dog.
I know. I just got fired up from a basketball perspective. All right. Lot of reports coming out of Minnesota. The takeaway is Ant-Man's the guy, basically, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Lefty, couple of items
Poncho
here.
agrees.
As much as I want to go in and talk to everybody in the live chat more, we're running out of time here. So I want to tell everybody that our guy Interner does a heck of a job updating nooffseason.com. Auctions ending soon on eBay, Whatnot, and Fanatics Collect. So go to nooffseason.com, check out the auctions ending soon, and just take a look at what we got going. I mean, somebody in the live chat asked about Luka. Luka, the formula doesn't have any cards that the formula doesn't like Luka, but some of the auctions that Turner has found are pretty decent Luka auctions that we think you could make money on. So go check them out. The other thing I want to talk about real quick, Lefty, is high ceiling, high floor, a repack product brought to you by nooffseason.com and m.pokeworld. Maddox Yost. Drop 2 is underway. We have 35 remaining. So we started with 40. We've sold 5. We got 35 left. There are 30% of these are hits, basically. Almost 30% of these are hits. So then on the floor side, we've got cards that for a $200 product, most of them on the checklist are $100 plus. But on the floor side, you're even looking at cards that we project to go up in value based on our sports card strategy show knowledge and all the work that we put in. So let's sell out that product so that we can have a live stream reveal from the Nashville Card Show in 2 weeks, in less than 2 weeks, in a week and a half. Speaking of the Nashville Card Show, Lefty, are you and Turner coming down for sure? I'm putting you on the spot. What's the plan?
We are for sure unsure.
Okay. Okay, well, Lefty and Turner may or may not be joining me at the Nashville Card Show, but we'll try to figure out a way to get them down for that because
But we are for sure that we are unsure.
That's good. That's good to know. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, just in general, to be for sure that you're unsure. I would say it's probably a good thing that you're sure about something, even though the thing that you're sure about is that you're unsure. And on that note, Lefty, what do you want to say to our beautiful, beautiful audience before we hit them with the outro?
I can't wait for you guys to be more excited about the WNBA because there's incredible playoffs going on right now as the New York Liberty steal another game from the Las Vegas Aces last night. A lot of good players on the court. Everybody, you got to tune into that series. It's a fun one. Other than that, play the rock music, Paul.
Thanks so much for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. To connect with us further, please subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Please also give us a follow on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy and on X at No Off Season Card. We also have a Discord that you could join at sportscardstrategy.com. Everyone, I'm Paul Hickey. For the rest of us here at nooffseason.com, have a great day. We'll see you again soon.